2.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your girl Sophia Ruffin. Listen, I'm back with day 2 of the Right Now webinar. I'm so excited about all of you guys who participated yesterday and came back today. You in for a treat. I got special guests that will be with us on today. As you can see, I got my young one, Nichelle Joy, that's here with me, you guys. And then we're going to have a segment with Javon, who is going to be speaking on editing and publishing and all that process. So we're going to have a video that's going to play following me and Nichelle's segment. And then we're going to have my coach, Apostle John Eckhart, who's going to be a part and sharing some information as well. So listen, thanks for real for all of y'all. I see you. I see all of y'all. Brittany Webb, Lady Tap, Kim, CBK26, CBK49. Shout out to all my CBK squad. I appreciate y'all for being on here and just excited. So I want y'all to be stirred up. I want you to be lit. I want you guys to be excited because Nichelle, God, we laugh, but it's a blooper and this Sophia Ruffin webinar. If you got a problem with that blooper, just edit that version out. But anyway, we got 11-year-old Nichelle that's going to be bringing us some excellent information. But before I get started, I wanted to encourage you all, if you have not downloaded my ebook, How to Complete the Book in 10 Days, I recommend you to go right now to sophiaruffin.com and get that ebook. We talked about that. We covered a lot of content yesterday. It was intense. We were talking about, how to get that book completed, how to move while there's a writer's momentum and a writer's grace upon your life. And so we want you to finish your book. We don't want you to just experience this webinar and say you got information. Yesterday, we released the impartation. And then not only that, but I completed an ebook so you guys can have a resource. So when the energy is gone, when you feel like, you know what, I'm writing and I'm in day 3 and I'm not motivated and you're not hearing my voice, go get that ebook. Because in that ebook, I'm talking, I'm aggressive, I'm speaking directly to you, and that's going to be information that's going to push you to complete your book. So I want you to go to sophiaruffin.com. It's $12. Get that ebook. And I also want to encourage you all, if you're interested in the CBK squad, come back here. I have opened that up, and you can go on my website, sophiaruffin.com, to sign up to be a part of the CBK squad. And the information is on my website for that as well, you guys. So we're going to prepare to go ahead and get started. I'm going to do an icebreaker with Nichelle. Nichelle, how you feel?
I feel excited, kind of nervous, but excited, yeah.
We ain't scared of these people. They don't see us. we see them. So we ain't never scared of these people, but yeah, I'm a little nervous too. But it's okay. No, but we're going to have a good time. So, Nichelle, to get started, I know some parents are at home. They got their kids watching. They're watching. Some parents, were excited after I did the Facebook Live with you. I got so much feedback from people saying, oh my God, that 11-year-old wrote 2 books. Oh my God, that 11-year-old is phenomenal and all these things. And so I want to just kind of have a little icebreaker and ask you, are you loud or quiet?
As in speaking?
Just overall, loud person, quiet person.
I'm a loud person overall. I talk a lot. Honestly, I prefer loud music over quiet music. I'm a overall loud person. Yeah.
You pretty loud?
Yeah.
Am I loud or quiet?
In the middle, kind of. Like, if you're serious with you, like, but if you're, like, calm and stuff, then, like, you're quiet. But, like,
I think wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's pretty true. Somebody said, Nichelle's dad on there talking about, that's my baby. Shout out to your dad that's on here. Shout out to our mom that's here as well. So are you more like, you're outgoing, like to be around people, or do you prefer to be alone?
It's a complicated situation. So if I don't know you, then I won't be necessarily like, hey, how you doing? I'll try to do that because, like, I'm trying to be more of a people person. But if you're my best friend, I will be clumsy. I will be loud. I will be silly and everything. Like, I would just be like, hey, what's up? Blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah.
I'm pretty much like that. If I know you, I'm like, yo, what up? If I don't know you, I'm like, oh, hi. So it's kind of normal. What about, you prefer to eat out, or you like when your mom cook?
Depends on what she's cooking. Like, I have, like, a certain list of meals that I like, and sometimes I don't like what she's cooking, but I eat it anyway because she's gonna be like, so you can't order no pizza. I'm like, please. She's like, no, you better eat this dinner. Sit down and eat this dinner. I'm like, okay, mom, yes, mother.
And you sit down and eat the dinner,
Yeah.
right? Okay. You prefer to travel or do things at home?
I like traveling. Like if I were to travel like a lot, I would do it. But being comfy in my couch is cool too. So,
Yeah, it's
like,
pretty cool.
I'll stay in my bed for the day.
I like that. They saying, "Oh, so sweet, so sweet." All of those good things. So let's dive right into this writing. I am so, as I told you on my Facebook Live, impressed with you being 11. When I was 11, God, I can't even remember what I was doing. I probably was fighting and just kind of doing some crazy ratchet stuff. But 11 years old, do you get this question a lot? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yes, I do. And I never really been able to answer it. I don't know who I really am yet. Like, as a little kid, I've never thought about being an author or anything, but now I'm here and I'm like, where did this come from? Like, it just like smacked me in the face out of nowhere. I'm like, what? So, like, it's really amazing to be an author because, like, you get to be new places, you get to meet new people, and you have to have these big opportunities open for you. So that was a big twist in my life. So.
You just preached what I said yesterday. Really, Nichelle, you said you get to meet new people, go new places, and like when you wrote your book, you didn't know you wanted to be an author. It just like smacked you in the face. Tell me about that. Like how in the world did becoming an author just smack you in the face?
I don't even know. Like just getting education, just mom being there for me, just pushing me around. Well, not pushing me around, but pushing me on.
Like
to write
not pushing you around, but like, come on, you can do it, Nichelle. Let's go.
So motivating me to write these books. It's just all of that hits you like that. Like when you're a little kid, you expect life is great, you know? I could just hang around here in my bed, no homework, no nothing. But nah. It's like when middle school hits you in the face after elementary school and there's no homework.
Yeah.
So it's like that when you're an author and you want to be something else.
So you say your mom pushed you around. Give me some examples of those moments as you were developing into an author and writing. What were some of those things that your mom and your dad said to you to push you?
They were all, you gonna write today, like after school? What you gonna write about? I'm like, I don't know. I need homework and stuff. And they're like, so what you gonna write about? I'm like, okay. All right, I'm going to write about this and stuff. So I would tell them what I'm writing about and stuff, and then they would be so happy and stuff. They'd be, yay,
wow.
You're going to write today, yay. And then they would, like, reward me with these small rewards, like maybe a little dessert or something, because half the time I don't get dessert because it's very late at night.
Right.
But, like, maybe some ice cream or something after a few days, but, yeah.
Oh, my God, so you got a reward. Like, yo, you're going to get a nice dessert if you do some writing. And that motivated you to write.
Yes, it did.
So parents, listen. 11. She wrote her first book at what age?
11. Well, 9. This book was at 9.
People don't even know. Kids at 9 just learning how to spell cat and dog and rabbit. And you, 9 years old, writing a book. So parents, listen. Your kid is never too small or too young not to write. You hear Nichelle say her parents pushed her and encouraged her, but they also offered her a reward of something as simple as a dessert. Yeah. So who are some of your inspirations besides God and why?
As an author,
whether it's authors, people, just overall.
I've been inspired by actually a lot of people, as in my family. I've been inspired by those famous people because, once again, my mom, I've always wanted to be an actor or a gymnast or something, and my mom would say, if you do this, then that opportunity can open for you. And I was like, but I don't want to write because, like, I wasn't in that moment yet. And she was like, if you keep on doing this, then eventually you can be an actor without going through all of that process. Yeah. Like, you can be on TV, you can do this, you can do that. And that really motivated me. And the more I watched TV and the more I read books, I just really wanted to be up there. So,
wow. So what was your first book that you wrote at age 9?
This one right here, The Joys of Writing, as you can see.
Tell them, what is that, The Joys of Writing?
Yes.
What is that book about?
The Joys of Writing is a book of short stories. It is about kids, animals, things, people that are all alive and talking, and they have fun and they go on adventures. There is some type of moral in every story. There are like bullying stories, friendship stories, kindness stories, and all of that. My personal favorite in here is My Tooth because it's based on a true story. It was about me getting my tooth pulled when I was like a little baby, and there's this huge chair that I never wanted to get in, and I would just run around and around and around, and I would never get in it. And to the very end of the appointment, and I finally got my tooth pulled, and I was like, oh, it's not that bad. But the story is about a little girl like me who kept on running around and around and around the chair, and they got in the chair finally, and she closed her eyes and she saw Jesus.
Wow.
Big turn. Yeah. And she was like, Jesus said, do not be afraid. You will be okay. This dentist appointment is going to be all right. And she came out there learning a new lesson, not to be afraid of anything. Like, you know, like Jesus is there. Like,
wow.
I'm always
So
protected. Yeah.
that's amazing, you guys. She took her experiences and she wrote about it at age 9. So what steps did you take to actually complete your books? Like, was there certain steps? Because there are some young people on here right now that, you know, desire to write a book. They want to write a book. And when you look at this, it's like, wow, I can't do that. There's no way that I can do it. But what steps did you take, you know, to write your book and to get it complete?
Steps.
So you had to listen to your mom and your parents when they pushed you. Did you have to sit down and just, when you say write, did you write it out with a pen and a paper? Did you type it out? What did you do?
So, true story that leads my answer. When I was little, also I used to write these tiny little books. They never got published, but I would write these books, give them to mom, and she would be like, "Oh, this is cute." She would read them. She was like, "Oh, this is good." Like, not because she's my mom, but she was like, "This is good," and I was like, "Thank you," and stuff. And she would give me like a piece of candy or something. Like, yay! Like, it was woohoo. And so, a big step is, I guess, parents not telling your child that they can't do it. As in, sometimes when I am with a younger friend and they say they want to do something, I can't say like, "Oh, you can't do that. Like, you're a little too young to do that."
Yeah.
I'll be like, someday you can do that, instead of you're a little young to do that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is, like, I'm literally, every time that I get a chance to talk to you, I always get something that just, like, it encouraged me. Because I look at you and I'm like, oh my God, this is just so amazing. And the fact that at 11, you are not only encouraging kids, but you're encouraging other parents. And it sounds like your mom and your parents really encouraged you, and they played a key role in you getting it done, from the point of taking your book, taking what you turn in and saying, hey, this is cute, this is awesome, and encouraging you and telling you, hey, you need to write. And you like, I got homework, I got this, I got that. No, you need to write. In order to get this dessert, you need to write. So they were pushing you. So what would you say to parents right now who, when their kids come home? Because I know I don't have any kids of my own, but I deal with a lot of young people, and they give me pictures and they give me stuff, and I'm like, why are you giving me this? And I just toss it. I mean, I'm serious. Sorry, guys, I do. So I don't want to collect a whole bunch of papers. What would you say to parents whose kids are coming home with little things that they've written, little books in school? What would you tell them to do with those?
Just keep them in process, and then later you could show it to them. And they'll be like, what's this? You'll be like, this is a little book you made. And then they'll read it over, and they'll be like, oh, this is pretty good. You was like, yeah, you're a pretty smart kid. And then they will be inspired by that to later on do it like better professionally, or do it in a different way.
It's amazing. What did you do when you got frustrated? Was there ever times, because I know I'm grown and I write and I get frustrated. And I'm like, I don't want to see another book, another computer, get everything out the way. I hate it. No more writing. But were there times in your process of writing that you got frustrated, and what did you do?
There were a lot of times. So during my second book, The Great Adventures, that I made just last year, I was in the process of writing, and I couldn't find out what to write in like the middle. Well, no, not the middle. It was the end that I couldn't get. I couldn't get the end. And I was just so mad. I was like, Mom, what do I do? She was like, I don't know. Like, you're writing the book.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, but like, what do I do? But then again, the more I watch TV, the more resources I get. Like, you know, those spy movies or something, or those like Kung Fu Panda or something. I got ideas from those because once again, my second book is based off of China, and I got my ideas from those books and movies. And I put all of these different brainstorming topics, I guess, together, and I got this one thing. So like if your child or your sister or your loved one has an idea but they can't finish it or they can't start it, like give them different resources. Like think of Barney or something, and then think of a peanut dinosaur. It's okay if it's crazy. Like a peanut purple dinosaur, I'm fine with that. Like it could be crazy, it could be normal, but just brainstorm different topics and things, and then it'll all come together in the end.
And that's powerful that you said. It kind of go with something I said last night. When you get stuck, don't stop. You have to keep writing. You have to keep pushing. And sometimes people stop, Nichelle, because they like, okay, I got the beginning and I don't know what to do with the middle, and they stop writing. And so what you're saying is you have to look for resources. You have to be creative. You have to find ways to get back into that creative flow to write again. So it is normal for people to get frustrated when writing.
Yes.
Okay, but you still have to keep going even in the midst of that?
Yes.
Okay, so, how many hours did you spend writing? Because being in school, and like you said, you had homework and had to balance, and then your parents like, did you write today? Right. So how much time did you actually spend writing?
Speaking that I was in elementary school and now that I'm in middle school, I believe school ended at about 3 maybe. So I got out at 3, and then from about 3 to 3:30 I did homework, and then practically I took like another 30-minute break to relax my mind, watch a little TV, eat. And then I practically wrote for the rest of the night, and I would take like a little break for dinner time or something, but I practically wrote for the rest of the night. So that's a good like 3-4 hours of writing, but it doesn't always have to be that long. Like you can't pressure yourself. If you pressure yourself, you'll just stop thinking. Like that's what I say to myself a lot. Don't think about it too much. Like if you think about it too much, then like my brain would just turn off and I'd be like, and something messes up.
Wow. I love that you said earlier that writing opened doors for you, and writing has allowed you to travel. It's now allowing you to meet new people. It's allowing you to share your experience at such a young age. What are some of the doors that have opened for you since you've stepped into this role as an author?
Well, I've met you.
Hey.
That's cool. Like, I've had the opportunity to meet Simone Biles. Like,
it's amazing.
And I couldn't sleep for that night. Just recently, I had the chance to meet Marley Diaz. That was really cool. And I was like, and she actually liked my Facebook page picture. And I was like, she liked it.
That's amazing.
And so I've been able to travel a few places, and then Mom's like motivating me. She's like, I'm like, when can we go to California again? She's like, when you get the money to go. I'm like, come on, like.
So you got to keep writing books.
Yeah.
You have to keep writing books. And this is amazing. And this is something, I want you to share this, the joys of writing your own story. This is something, I want you to share this because can they purchase this?
Soon. It's coming soon. So we're planning to make like all of these little things. And I'm going to make a website. The website is under construction currently. And we are planning to make all of these little like merchandise things, like, t-shirts and backpacks and sweaters even maybe. And we're gonna like put it all together and stuff. It's gonna be really cool. Like, I won't just have to say like, oh, buy my book. Soon I'll be like, buy my book and my sweatshirt.
Hello?
And my t-shirt and my hat. Like, buy everything.
It's amazing.
So yeah.
She's a young entrepreneur. She's on fire. She's very energetic. I love your energy. I love your humility. Your name actually sounds famous, like Nichelle Joy. Was that your real name, or you just kind of added the Joy?
Joy is my middle name, so Alexander is my last name.
Wow, you got kind of fancy with it. Some of the comments is, you're really helping me tonight. You're so inspiring. You're very organized. You're very polished. You're a young businesswoman. You are amazing. Some of the comments are very encouraging. The people really like you. Tell us, Nichelle, I want to ask this. When did you get excited about actually being an author? Because was it, during the writing process, I'm going to be an author? Or was it once you saw the physical book? When did you really start getting excited about what you're doing right now?
It was kind of on and off. So when I was in like writing both of them and the illustrations come out, I was like, whoa, oh, like illustrations really hype you up. You're like, hey, woo, let's go. But then again, once I started selling them and I just started seeing, one, how many people were being inspired, and two, how I was getting famous, I was like, yeah.
Love it.
So yeah, that really inspired me to keep writing.
I love it. So how do you balance being a cool kid and, your peers at school? I mean, you just author your books are in the library at school. You like popular. How do you balance still being humble, sweet, genuine, listening to your parents? How do you maintain that?
Education. It's all about education. Education is life. Education is everything. I keep on telling my friends, if you don't do this question, you won't get an education, or you fail sixth grade. Without sixth grade, you won't get an education. Without an education, you won't get a job. Without a job, you won't get money. So you're gonna be in your parents' house for all your life. You don't want to do that, so do your question. Like, come on, it's a ripple. So that's how you do it. Like at school, you learn about like respecting your teachers and stuff,
Yes.
responsibilities. You learn how to apply different situations to life. So that's how I kind of balance everything. And then with your friends, like you learn how to kind of socialize with different people and deal with different situations. So
Oh man, Nichelle, you are one phenomenal kid. We got a few minutes. They said that she's young and big on education. They love it. And someone said you're just swinging your hair, back and forth and stuff like that. And just amazing feedback, and that you're really wise. Now, what would you say to the young person that's looking at you right now? And I want you to really, whatever come to your heart to say to them, to encourage them, to just kind of really speak into them right now. I want you to take a time and talk to the young people. What would you say to them who's on this journey of writing?
Hi. Like, as you see in my process of writing, many doors have opened for me. Many things have opened for me. You can do a lot of things in being an author. If you want to do something, do it. Because you're never too young, you're never too old, you're never too tall, short, big, small to do anything. You could be anybody and you could do anything. That's all I have to say. Like, if you think you're too small to do basketball or something, like you're too short to do basketball, no. Like, you could do anything. You might be the best at a jump shot or something. Like, swish, swish. Like, yeah. You could do anything that you want. Big opportunities were open for you if you keep following your dreams. So.
Nichelle, thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. We're going to definitely do some things together in the future. I want you guys to follow Nichelle Joy on Facebook. And also you can follow Publish Affordable.
Publish affordably.
Online, Heavenly Printing online. And real quick, you guys, again, go to Amazon.com to get Nichelle Joy's books, The Great Adventures and the Joys of Writing, and continue to follow and support what she's doing. Now, her mother happens to be a publisher who published books, and you can go to publishaffordably.com if you need help publishing your books with t-shirts and all of this, getting your book published, everything that you would need. I'm going to recommend her. She helped Nichelle get her books done, and she's helped many authors write books and get their books published. She's an amazing publishing company. So I want you to go to Publish Affordably. That's PUBLISHAFFORDABLY.com. Her name is Marilyn Alexander. Okay, and just make sure you let her know you're a part of the webinar and you're looking to get your book published, or you got some questions about publishing and you want to know, and you may have questions about your kids and their book and what they have. I want you to check out PublishAffordably.com. Somebody put that up and put that information up. Again, follow Nichelle Joy on Facebook, and let's continue to support. It's amazing when you have young people that's excited about pursuing their dreams. And just remember, you're never too young or you're never too old to complete your dream. If writing a book is something you desire to do, I'm here to let you know it's not too difficult. If an 11-year-old wrote a book at 9, everybody on here ought to say, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. And so parents, she dropped some nuggets. You need to push your kids. That's number one. You need to encourage them. You need to reward them, have some positive incentives, pat them on the back, hold them accountable. Don't just let them go spend hours on the video game, hours on Facebook, hours outside. Hold them accountable so that they're not just wasting time being idle, and then you don't know what they're doing. They're just playing a video game, and just set apart some time and encourage them to get some writing done. When they bring those little bitty cartoons home and they drew all those ugly pictures that are, I'm sorry, cute but ugly, ugly but cute to you pictures, whatever. Keep them and save them, because you never know. Your baby may be the next author that will rise up in the family, and then entrepreneurship will begin to open. So thank you so much, you guys. Now, what we're about to have, you got any closing words, Michelle Joy?
Bye.
It's been phenomenal. Did you have a good time?
Yes,
you
I
did. How you feeling?
I feel loose.
You feel loose?
I feel comfy,
So the next time we do, you'll be ready?
Yeah.
Okay, and she will be at Come Back Here Conference in September. She has her own things that she's getting ready to start doing, so stay tuned. You want to follow her for more information. Now, you guys, this segment is over. What's about to happen now is you're about to hear a video that's played by Javon, who is the author, publisher, editor, writer. She's going to come live on the video for 1 hour and 11 minutes. So take out your notes. Take notes. She's going to be very detailed, very specific. So I'll be back in 1 hour and 11 minutes. All right, you guys.
I'm Javon Bolden, independent editor and writer. Thank you for joining me. Today, I want to share with you a few things that I've learned about editing and getting published during my 15 years as a book editor for traditional publishers and best-selling authors. I had the opportunity of working in both adult nonfiction categories and in children's publishing. Did you know that editors are some of the most important and influential people in an author's life? Did you know that editors are the gatekeepers to the publishing world? If you can't get past them with your book proposal, you don't get published. Did you also know that there are different types of editors who serve different functions in the editorial process? And really, there's only a few editors who are just the right fit for your book. To a great degree, editors can make or break the impact of an author's work. In the next 50 to 60 minutes, I'm going to share with you what a good editor can do for your publishing career. We're going to look at 3 things. How to get an editor's attention if you want to publish traditionally. How to choose the right editors for your book if you want to self-publish. And what to expect during the editorial process. I have been blessed to have spent time serving in almost every role in the editorial process, from copy editor to developmental editor, and finally as senior editor. And just last year, I launched out on my own and started my company, Embolden Media Group, whose mission is to support authors and publishers as they create great books that matter. For now, you can find me at javonbolden.com, where I focus on coaching, editing, and writing for authors across topics and genres. Having edited more than 300 books on various topics and working with more than 100 authors, I'm excited to share with you tips, secrets, and proven strategies that will help you achieve the success you seek as a published author. So without wasting 1 minute more, let's get to the good stuff. So in discussing how to get an editor's attention, if you want to publish traditionally, you have to consider that editors are the gatekeepers of the publishing industry, and not just any editors, but acquisitions editors. They're kind of like when you think of baseball and other sports, editors are the talent scouts. They're the ones who carry the publisher's vision. They know what works for the publisher's target audience. They know what their readers are looking for. There are 3 ways that you can get your book idea in front of an acquisitions editor. Remember, they are the gatekeepers. Not just any editor, not just freelance editors, but an acquisitions editor who works at a publisher, at a publishing house. They are your ticket in to getting your book proposal reviewed by a publishing team. And there are 3 ways that you can connect with them and share your ideas with them. Number 1, the Writers' Conference. Number 2, through a literary agent. And number 3, by you having an exceptional platform that they can see you when they're doing their talent scouting. One of the things that I did as an acquisitions editor was I looked for talent. There were times, of course I could go to writers' conferences, and I did. I did receive submissions from literary agents. There's something about knowing as an editor what you want in your acquisitions pipeline. You know what you want. You have your ear to the ground. You know what people are wanting. You're doing your homework. And so in that case, a lot of times acquisitions editors will go out on their own and actually acquire authors based on what they feel needs to be in the market. And that was one of the things I liked to do quite a bit was, kind of scour the marketplace and see who is a up and coming new voice, who is a rising star, who was someone that, people weren't, publishers weren't quite aware of just yet, but they had something that, the world needed. And so many times, I would look for that untapped, exceptional concept from an author who is just doing phenomenal work in the marketplace. They have a ready audience. Their social media is kicking. They got followers and likes. They're engaging. People are retweeting them. And so that's one of the ways. That's number 3. I'm just kind of going into that because I'm going to spend some time on number 1 and number 2. But number 3, you having your own exceptional platform, you doing writing for magazines, you pushing your social media, and really providing benefits to your audience. A lot of times acquisitions editors are looking for authors like you. I know I was. And so that's one of the ways that you can organically attract the attention of acquisitions editors. At writers' conferences, and I'm going to combine number 1 and number 2 just a little bit, because at writers' conferences, you can meet both acquisitions editors from publishing houses as well as literary agents. Usually at the writers' conference, they are teaching sessions that can be helpful to you. But then there are also a lot of conferences will offer 15-minute one-on-one appointments with editors and agents. And that's an opportunity for you to present your book proposal to them, for you to give them your elevator pitch. Sometimes you don't have it all together. Maybe you don't have your elevator pitch and you're just beginning to work on your book proposal. You can still sit with them and ask them what they think about your book idea. Maybe they are able to give you some feedback that can help take you to the next level, that'll help you reshape your book or aim your book toward what they're looking for and what their publishing house is wanting to publish. When it comes to literary agents, they are your representatives before the acquisitions editors and publishing houses. Many publishers these days do not accept unsolicited manuscripts. And what that means, they don't accept manuscripts that they haven't asked for. And when you do submit a manuscript they haven't asked for, that's usually an automatic pass. And so it's great to have a literary agent, or they may not answer. Let me go back and say that. Sometimes it's an automatic pass, or they may not answer. But with a literary agent, they know what publishers are publishing certain topics. They know what certain editors are looking for. When I was an editor, I would have literary agents call me and ask me, how can they help me? What books am I looking for? What types of authors did I want to see our publishing house publish? They would ask me what concepts are interesting to me. And they would even meet with me at writers' conferences So they were always on their game. They were always trying to match their authors with the right publishers. That is my plug for literary agents. They are phenomenal. As an acquisitions editor, I really enjoyed working with them. They put together fantastic book proposals for their authors. They knew what I, as an acquisition editor, was looking for. And a lot of time they helped me, because editors have an enormous workload most of the time, especially those who are in publishing houses, working 60 plus hours a week, easy, every week on a regular basis, nights and weekends included. And so being able to put together book proposals and do all kinds of things outside of just editing could be a challenge, as well as I traveled some. And so having literary agents who knew what I was looking for, and they could send me great book proposals, and they were looking out for me in that aspect, that was a tremendous advantage. And so I encourage you, if you're looking to get traditionally published in this time, I would recommend that you work with a literary agent. They do require that you sign an agreement with them, and they usually require about 15% of all that you earn, but that is a small amount to pay when you have somebody who will go to bat for you. They will negotiate your contract for you. They will ask for higher royalties. They will ask for a higher advance. They will ask that your message be maintained. They will go to bat for you. They will say you don't want to do certain media. They will say, please put them in front of these audiences and with these people. They're going to be your advocate in the publishing arena. They will also work with publishers when it comes to reviewing your royalty statement, making sure that you are getting the attention you deserve. With so many authors that publishers have, sometimes authors get overlooked, and your literary agent, I know your editor is your advocate, but your literary agent is also going to be the one to call the editor and say, hey, have you, what's going on with my author? How's everything going? Where are we in the process? What can I do to help you keep things moving along? And so that's a significant, thing to have, and for very little to pay. They do not ask for any money up front. So while you're looking for a publisher, you're getting almost like free feedback, free investment, free representation before publishers. And once you sign that contract, that is when the literary agent will get paid for all the work that they've done to help you get published and to have a fantastic contract. Going to writers' conferences and connecting with editors and agents is something that you should definitely put on your to-do list when it comes to being in position to be recognized by traditional publishers. If you are able to attend a writers' conference and you have an appointment or more than one appointment with editors and agents, there are certain things that you do want to have ready to discuss with them. You may want to spend some time thinking about the following 3 things: your publishing goals, your topic and target audience, and what you are doing to build your audience, your platform. You want to be able to talk to editors about what you see for yourself when it comes to publishing. Why do you want to publish? Why are you looking at publishing with their publishing house? So that does require some research on your part. Don't go and waste their time. These are busy individuals, both agents and editors, and their time is valuable. So do your research. Look on the agent's website. Look on the editor's publisher's website. See what is interesting about them and how they match with your publishing goals and the book that you're writing. Don't go and sit with editors or agents who are not looking for your type of manuscript, who are not looking to publish books like the ones you're writing. Use your time and theirs very wisely. When it comes to pitching them on your book concept, I mentioned the elevator pitch a little bit earlier. The elevator pitch is a 30 to 60 second statement about your book, who you are, and why you want to publish with them. And it needs to be fairly convincing and fairly well put together. There are resources all over the web on how to put together a fantastic elevator pitch. The next thing I want to talk about is how to choose the right editor if you are going to self-publish. What's cool about being an author at this time is that you have the opportunity to choose from some of the best minds in content development available. Due to the changes in the industry, some of the best content developers, product developers, editors is who I'm speaking of, they're exiting the publishing industry due to the changes, due to several factors, but they're now on their own. They're independent publishing professionals that you can access to take your book to the next level. The hard part is choosing the right one. One thing you need to keep in mind is that there are editors with different levels of experience that have different specialties. There are 4 things you want to keep in mind when it comes to choosing the right editor for your book: their previous work experience, their education, the level of editing that they specialize in, word of mouth, what other authors have said about them, or what other publishing professionals have said about them, their recommendations, and interviewing them. When it comes to an editor's experience, consider that editors have worked with, there are different types of editors. There are editors who work in the trade book industry, which is basically the general market where you can go to Barnes and Noble and go into, the romance section of the store. You can go to the literature fiction section. You can go to just the various areas in the bookstore for general reading. So those are trade books. Those are books that you just, most of the books that you may have on your shelf are considered trade books. There are other types of editors, such as academic editors that work for university presses that edit dissertations and that have more of a specific set of skills based on academic research, and that does require just a little bit different set of experience. Then there are textbook editors who specialize in textbooks and copy. There are editors who specialize in cookbooks. There are editors who specialize in novels and memoirs. So there are so many different types of specific sets of skills that you want to consider when you are choosing an editor. To find the one that edits books similar to the ones that you write, get a list of the books that they've edited. You can ask the editor during your process of selection. When you email the editor or you talk with them on the phone, ask them for a list of books that they've edited in the past. They may send you links to Amazon books that have been published. They may have a list of books on their website. So take some time and get a list of things that they've edited so that you can see if your work fits within that. Another recommendation when it comes to an editor's experience is to work with an editor who has worked for a publisher. And again, I want to point out that publishers specialize also. There's trade book publishers, there are academic publishers, there are various types of publishers that focus on different types of content and for different purposes. So if you're writing an academic book, then you might want to find an editor who has experience working with academic level books, considering the research and the citations. The reason you want to work with an editor who has worked with a publisher is because that's some of the most intense and demanding work. The level of quality that the editor has to apply to their manuscripts that they're editing is considerable. There's a huge accountability in that process in working in a house. When you think about working with editors who have only worked independently and have never worked with a team of editors, never worked with sales and marketing people, their mindset may be just a little bit different about how to make a book excellent. Editors who work in publishing houses often are trained to know how to gear a manuscript in and bend it toward reader preferences and make sure that it has what it needs to grab interest. And that's really what you want from an editor. You want to pull their knowledge and experience when it comes to how to make a book great and how to make a book be well received by its audience. Independent editors may not have had that kind of experience if they've not worked within a publishing house. If you want to get an idea of the kind of experience an editor has before you talk with them, look them up on LinkedIn. Check out their website. Google their names. See what comes up for them. And that will give you some idea of their body of work. And this is where you're kind of doing like surface level searching versus narrowing down your list and getting ready to get on the phone with different editors to see if there's a fit. I want to just make a small note because I know that a lot of times my audience is mostly Christian authors. When it comes to various types of Christian books, I know some based on my own experience as a trade book editor. My authors, I've worked with a diverse list of authors when it comes to topics and approaches to those topics. I've talked with authors at writers' conferences and in regular conversation, and there is sometimes a concern, will my editor get what I'm saying? And that is one of the things that you want. That's the reason why we're talking right now about their previous work experience, the books that they've worked on in the past, because there needs to be a fit, not just can you do my work, but do you understand what I'm trying to do with what I'm saying, what I'm writing? Do you understand my purpose? My experience, there are, different approaches to even a topic. Again, this is for Christian authors and even non-Christian authors. There are different approaches to things. When you think about the topic of prayer, there's a spirit-filled approach to it where there's prophetic and different things like that, and then there's more of a general approach to it. And you want to, especially when it comes to certain topics, you want to know that your editor is there with you, and that they can follow your line of thinking, your way of believing. It does not mean that the editor needs to believe the same way that you do, but they need to have an understanding on how to help you communicate what you want to say in the best way possible to the largest audience possible for that topic. So don't underestimate having an editor who really can connect with the heart of your message. The other things that you want to know that your editor is experienced in is the style guides that fit within your field of writing. So if you're talking about trade books, you want to know that your editor is familiar with the Chicago Manual of Style, that they've had some type of training when it comes to preparing a book in the right way for a trade book audience. The same goes for academic editors. There are certain citation styles and ways that sources and other parts of the book are prepared for the academic reader. And some of those styles are, important. And an editor who doesn't know how to use those and doesn't recognize that each field has its own special style, you may run into issues with having the right editor for that. Another thing you can consider outside of having worked at a publisher, editors may be mentored by other editors who have worked at publishers. Editors have opportunities to always stay on top of their skills by taking certification classes, by reading resources and books and things that help them stay on top of what's happening in the industry. Language is always changing, and you want to make sure that your editor understands what's happening in the culture, what's happening around the world, and that they're able to help you communicate. Once again, the goal of the editor is to help you communicate your message to your audience. And if they can help with the language, if they can help expand your audience by making sure that your verbiage and your wording is appropriate for a large audience, that's the editor for you. Education is another factor to consider when it comes to choosing an editor. Do they have a degree in English? In journalism? English and journalism are a bit different when it comes to how they approach content, but having an editor who understands how to form ideas and how to make them easy to read and to communicate the heart of the message. Some editors have advanced degrees, some have master's degrees and PhDs. Quite a few of the editors that I've worked with do have English or journalism degrees, and they have advanced degrees as well. And I think that's, that helps you to know that they understand how to critique language. When you think about the courses that are given in college, literary criticism classes, they're reading a wide variety of literature. They're seeing different expressions across the world on some of our most favorite stories, on some of the issues that are happening in the world and in history. They're seeing how literature moves culture. So editors who have college education, who have advanced degrees, have gone to graduate school and have PhDs in English and English literature, creative writing, journalism, those are the editors who have had significant experience breaking literature down and building their own stories, writing essays. And so that does bring another level of special skills that you can have applied to your own book. But you don't only want that academic mind, you want their education and their heart for helping authors shine. Some editors don't have college degrees or advanced degrees, but they have a high level of skill. So education isn't the only factor that you want to consider. There are different levels of editing needed at different points in the editorial process, and a different editor would be the one who would perform those different steps. And all of the editors do not do all of those levels of editing. Developmental editing, there's substantive and content editing, there's copy editing, line editing, and proofreading. Those are the four that I focus on because those are the four most general levels of editing. And every editor doesn't do each of those levels. If you are looking to have a high quality book by the time you're finished the editorial process, it's highly recommended that you follow that same process. That's the process that publishers take a book through. Developmental editing and substantive editing, those are the bigger picture levels of editing, and all editors don't see the big picture. They're not focused on that, or their skill level may not be in that area. There are editors who do specialize in big picture, in the structure of a book, in the organization of the ideas, and making sure that the author is communicating those in ways that the reader can easily grasp. One thing that you don't always want as an author is to have your reader work for the solution. The reason you wrote the book is to help them and lay out your process in a way that really adds to the reader's life and makes your information, your level of expertise, the things that you're trying to show them or teach them or entertain them with, you want to make that accessible. So the substantive and developmental editor, they are able to help you do that, and they find the areas where you may be missing that mark. That is not the editing stage that is focused on grammar, spelling, punctuation. A lot of times people think, well, that's what an editor does. They're thinking, I just want you to read through it, dot my I's, cross my T's. But substantive and developmental editing is a lot more involved than that. They are able to do that kind of checking and fixing and correcting as they go, but that is not their main focus. Their main focus is to make sure that your book is well written, making sure that your points and your ideas, the plot line, the characters are well developed. They're there to really, really take your content to the next level. The next level of editing, which is copy editing, there are editors who just do copy editing. Copy editing is like one of the steps of the editorial process that most people would recommend that you don't skip. I don't recommend that you skip the substantive edit, because that really is allowing the book to be what it needs to be. Substantive editors really help the book and make it go and do what the author purposed. The copy editor is going to take that edited manuscript and make sure all of the things, the smaller issues, the more detailed issues, I don't mean smaller in terms of less important, but they're more detail oriented. So they're looking line by line. Does this sentence read the right way? Is this going to be clear to the reader, or does this need to be flipped around? Do I need to break this up, the sentence up? Do I need to add more punctuation? So they are looking at punctuation, readability, clarity, and their minds are geared toward that. I've worked with editors over the last 15 years who literally only do copy editing, and they are brilliant at it. I've worked with editors who don't do copy editing and only do the structure, and they are brilliant at it. So when you're looking to choose the right editor for you, consider what types of editing that the person you're considering has done and what you need for your book. I would say that if you've just written your book, the first thing that you want to be looking for is a substantive or developmental editor. After your book has gone through the line edit, the copy edit, then your book is typeset, getting it ready for the printer. But after that stage, just before it goes to the printer, there is another type of editor called a proofreader. Proofreading is actually the final stage of editing, and it's a quality control check just before the book is sent to the printer. A very critical step, but you want the person who does the proofreading to have a sharp eye for typos, for typographical errors, for formatting issues. So they're looking at the book that has been set in type. They're making sure that the margins are right. They're making sure that the trim size is appropriate. They're making sure that there aren't any major typos or errors in the file. The great thing about being able to choose a different editor for each of those steps that I just described is that you're getting a fresh set of eyes on your manuscript. And as much as editors want to be perfect, and we work toward it very hard, we work toward being perfect, but we're not. There's no guarantee that there won't be some issues missed at different levels of editing. In the substantive edit, like I mentioned, there's a focus on the larger picture. So there may be a possibility that the editor has missed a comma, or they missed a misspelling, or a sentence fragment has been left. The copy editor is going to come behind with fresh set of eyes and say, oh, okay, well, let me fix that. I saw that that's misspelled. That participle was left dangling. The verb and subject are not agreeing in this sentence. They're giving fresh eyes to what the substantive editor has done. Then the proofreader, they're seeing it the last after everyone. This is a new editor, a different set of eyes, and they can find even the mistakes that the copy editor made. And copy editors, I just want to say this, are fabulous, and they usually do not miss, but sometimes they do. Almost every book that's published has some mistake in it. The goal, of course, is to produce error-free content, but just us being humans, even the Bible has mistakes in it, believe it or not. I know a copy editor who would find mistakes in the Bible all the time. It was one of a laugh for us working with different types of different editors at different stages. You're getting that you're getting 3 or 4 sets of eyes looking at your manuscript, and that is great for ensuring that you are producing high quality content. Another thing that will help you choose the right editor for your book is word of mouth, testimonials or referrals from other clients, from other publishing professionals. You can ask the editor for referrals. You can ask them to send you names of people that they've worked with who may give you recommendations, or who may let you know what it was like to work with them. That's another way. Or you can, once again, look on their websites or look on LinkedIn. Some editors will have testimonials. Some will have, the authors that they've worked with in the past listed on their websites or on their LinkedIn profiles. And that will give you an opportunity to follow up and see what those authors think about their work. Or you can probably go to the bookstore for some of these editors and just see the quality of their work because their books have been published by publishers. The last thing that you may find helpful in choosing the right editor for your book is interviewing them. Schedule a phone call with the editor, schedule an in-person meeting, connect with them one-on-one to hear their heart for editing. They need to love it. Editing can be difficult work. The editor spends a great amount of time in silence and working alone. So you want to know that the editor that you're choosing loves it. They also have to have a love for making other people shine. Your editor most likely will be one who has a love for words, a love for reading, a love for readers, a love for books, a love for authors, a love for publishing. There needs to be a level of passion with your editor for the process of editing as well as for your message. And a great way to get the feel of where your editor stands in that area is by interviewing them and talking with them directly. We can sometimes underestimate the value of chemistry when it comes to connecting with an editor or connecting an editor with an author. That's pretty important. You want to feel, that the editor gets you, and you can really get that impression and that feeling from communicating with them in person. Once you have looked at their list of qualifications, once you've looked at the list of books that they've edited, once you understand that they specialize in a certain level of editing and they do it well, their educational background, the next thing to do is to connect with them in person and see if there really is a fit. I am often asked about how much it costs to get your book edited. The rates vary widely when it comes to what an editor may charge for editing your book. You have to consider that you're looking at editors across a spectrum. You're looking at different levels of experience, different years of experience. You're looking at different specialties. So one thing you can start to assume is that if your editor has a little bit of experience, but they're still good, they may charge a little bit less than an editor who has a lot of experience, who has a lot of books that they've published. And then even beyond that are editors who've worked with best-selling authors. Editors who have worked with New York Times best-selling authors who have helped push those books forward are bringing a certain level of experience to the table. And you're getting, as the author, you're getting to work with someone who knows what makes a book a bestseller. You're getting to work with someone who understands the process of, I've talked about this already, but they know how to make a book really fly off the shelves. They understand what the reader needs to really connect with the author and their message. So when you look at editors who haven't had that much experience in that level, all the way to editors who have a lot of experience and have a track record of successful books, you can understand that there could be a spectrum of charges that come from that. The cost for editing ranges widely depending on the topic, the editor's experience level, the word count, and the quality of writing. The cost may range from $20 to $60 for most editors, and again, depending on the level of editing required. And it may go up from there based on the editor's experience and their track record with best-selling books. Editing can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 to 4 to 6 months. The reason why I give those ranges is because it depends, once again, on the level of editing being performed, the editor's schedule, the word count of the book, the quality of the writing, and how many times the editor will need to go back and forth with you to make sure that they're understanding and editing according to the plans that you have for your book. So when you are writing, start to get in your mind how much time you want to take for the editing process, and consider your release date. I've heard it recommended that while writing, the authors should not pre-plan their release date and expect the editor to fit into that time schedule. Only because if you're a new author, a new writer, you may not be aware of what actually goes into the editorial process. The substantive and developmental edit can take anywhere from 50 hours to 100 hours plus. It really depends, once again, on some of the factors that I've already named. The copy edit will take less time because the writing has been really cleaned up by the substantive editor. Proofreading should not take very much time at all. We're looking at 10 to 20 hours of proofreading. And again, this all there's so many things that those numbers that I just gave depended on. And you may find that as you're looking for some of these answers online, you won't find a straight answer, because so many things go into determining the length of time, the cost of the edit, and how quickly you can get on with your process. But you want to start thinking about who is going to edit your book pretty early, in your writing process. It's recommended sometimes that you even contact an editor before you begin writing. That's where the developmental editor can come into place, to make sure that your outline is done well, to make sure that you are, you've structured your book in a way that your editing process will go smoother. When you work with an editor ahead of time, you're able to get the structure down. You're able to really have them help you, bring out those reader benefits in your writing. And once you get to the substantive edit, there should not be very much work, and you'll be able to spend less money at that stage, rather than just writing on your own without any direction. And this is especially for first-time authors. Some of the higher caliber editors who have more experience, who have a track record of best-selling books, their calendars fill up pretty quickly. If you want to work with an editor who has that level of experience, and you're really looking to really enhance your book, you're going to have to get with them early on. Some editors are booked months out in advance and do not have free time in their schedule to take on new authors. So consider that as you're, planning your editing schedule and your release dates. Editors come to the table with years of experience, lots of understanding about how words affect people, and how to shape content that reaches the target audience. You can use them in a number of ways outside of just doing an edit on your book. One way that an editor can help you is by doing a manuscript review, a manuscript critique. That's after you've written your book, you think that you have, you're basically finished, you're completed with your book, and you just need to have somebody go over it. You want to see what the weak places are, what may need to be improved in the writing, in the communication and articulation of your message, and an editor can do that for you. And that is an inexpensive way to have a professional look over your work and give you their professional opinion about the quality. And usually they're doing that in comparison to what's on the market. They'll do a market analysis. They'll do a read on the quality of writing. They'll let you know how they think the title will work for your target audience. They will really break that process down. So that's like getting some really professional feedback on something that you've written. Another way that you can use an editor outside of having them edit your book is to consult with them. Editors are professionals. They have a strong understanding of the publishing industry, of the publishing process, of what makes books successful. So you can get on the phone with them and talk through some of your concerns, some of your ideas. You can consult with editors about any step of the publishing process, and they're able to give you some really great advice on how to proceed. Sometimes you get stuck in your process. Sometimes you need a little encouragement. Sometimes you need to know if you're headed in the right direction, and a consult with an editor is a great option, and a little less expensive, quite a bit less expensive than having them edit your book. However, it does not take the place of editing, but it does help you as you're planning and strategizing your publishing process. Editors are also great bridges to other publishing professionals. If you're working with an editor who has had experience in a publishing house, who has traveled and attended various industry events and writers' conferences, you can know that the editor probably knows other publishing professionals who can help you complete your book. Editors will probably know book cover designers, graphic designers. An editor may know other editors who can help you at different steps in your process. They may be able to recommend other ways of getting your book published. They may know printers, marketing people, sales, distribution experts. They're a great resource overall to help you, get your book published. A good editor is a superstar in the publishing process and an essential partner to an author who wants to see their book soar. So I hope that I have provided you with some really great tips to help you find the editor who is just right for your book project. So now we're going to the editorial process. About 7 things in the editorial process: the manuscript review and critique, the substantive content edit, author review, changes, copy edit, typesetting, first pages or galleys, and proofreading. The first step there, the editor gets your manuscript from you. They look at it, they read it through, they review it, they determine if it matches the outline that was approved by the publisher. And if all is well and you have sent in a completed manuscript, then your manuscript is approved, and the editor sends out an alert for the accounting department to release your funds for the first part of your advance. And that really does depend on what was outlined in your contract. After the manuscript has been reviewed and approved, it is moved on to what is called the substantive or content edit. That is a big picture edit. That's where the editor is taking the whole scope of your project and making sure that everything is just so. They're looking for holes or missing points, things that could be explained better, or maybe you missed a step in your process, or there's something that doesn't flow quite right in your in the way that you have described your process. So the substantive editor, at the substantive edit, your acquisitions editor could be the one doing that, or the acquisitions editor could assign your manuscript to a developmental editor. So as I'm going through these steps, you're going to hear the different types of editors and what they focus on. After your book has been gone through the substantive edit, the next step will be the author review. The editor who has performed the substantive edit, they will send you an edited manuscript. And at that point, you are going to review what the editor has done. And if there are any corrections that you have at that point, because you would have had some time away from the manuscript by now, you would have turned your manuscript in, they would have reviewed it and approved it, and then edited it. And usually that's several weeks, about 8 to 12 weeks before you see your manuscript again. That's 2 to 3 months that have passed. And now you're able to look at your edited manuscript with fresh eyes. You are going to see queries in your manuscript from the editor. They would have gone through, and anything that wasn't clear to them, anything that was a problem, some things like libel, plagiarism, or misuse of copyrighted material is all going to be noted at that point. Questions like, what did you mean by this? Or could you give more explanation here? Or maybe you should write about, this in greater detail. Can you tell us about this? Can you tell us about that? Or have you considered this? Or have you considered that? This is where you are really getting the benefit of an industry professional, someone who is well-read, who is well aware of the trends at a greater level, at a higher altitude than maybe some authors are, because you're kind of in your world of writing, your area of expertise. But you have to consider that the editors that you're working with at this point would have read hundreds of books similar to yours, or they may have read, they have years of experience in the industry. And so their input is highly valuable if you want your book to go to the next level. Some authors get offended at this point, and there's really no reason to be offended. The editor is on your side. They're working on your behalf, and they're considering your target audience. They're considering what you said you want to do. I want to help people, whatever, I want to help people lose weight. I want to help people have better relationships. I want people to have joy and happiness in their lives. I want to see people break free from fear and stress and anxiety. If those are some of your goals, consider that the editor is partnering with you to help you achieve that. They're considering your reader. Just like, you should have been as you were writing. That's your focus. Who are you writing to? And the editor is going to be considering your reader almost more so than your feelings at this point. I know that's hard to hear, but the editor is working on your behalf in your favor to help you accomplish the mission and vision that you have for your book. And so some of the comments are going to be, and some of the edits, some of the things are going to be done with that in mind. One thing that you do want to be cautious of, which I will talk about a little bit later, is your voice. And I'll just table that for now. Author voice is important, and editors should not be overriding that. They should be enhancing it. And then there are also certain things that just are not your voice, even though you want them to be. Certain slang, certain things that are unique to your region or area, those are not necessarily your voice. The editor is going to make sure that your communication is able to reach people across the world almost. English, especially if you're an American-based author and you're working with an American-based publisher, their goal is to make sure that English-speaking people can understand, around the world, can understand what you're talking about. So there are going to be certain things that seem like your voice initially, if this is your first time working with an editor, but they're not exactly your voice. They are just certain things that you're used to saying based on your region or your upbringing. You have reviewed the manuscript. You're going to have several weeks to go through it and make any corrections and changes. You're going to have an opportunity to request permission from people who are included in your book. You can't obviously have anyone you can't talk about private citizens without their permission in your work. The editor is also going to give you an opportunity at that point to seek permission from copyright owners of songs or poetry or quotations that you're using in your book. There is something called fair use, and so if you go over that amount, then you are and you don't have permission to reprint, then you can be at risk of violating copyright laws. And so the editor is going to be aware of that, and they're going to make marks and comments about that and have you get permission from who you've lifted the material from. And if you can't get permission, usually at that point the editor is going to recommend an alternative, either some way to write around it or where you have to cut that material out, because they want to keep you safe. They want to keep themselves and their publishers from lawsuits. No one wants to be in the courtroom dealing with libel or copyright issues. The next step once you turn your edited manuscript back into the publisher is the copy edit. Copy editors are different than substantive editors. They're different than acquisitions editors. They're different than developmental editors. Copy editors are looking at the small picture. They are performing what is called a line edit or a copy edit on your manuscript. They are going line by line, very detailed. And for the copy editor, their guide is the Chicago Manual of Style. I have a copy of that book here. This is a book, a style guide that the entire book publishing community submits to. This is our, we call it our Bible, our style Bible. The copy editor knows that book, should know that book backwards and forwards. Your editor probably knows that book backwards and forwards. As I mentioned in my introduction, I started as a copy editor and worked my way up through developmental editor. I did substantive edits and line edits and content edits, and I moved up to being a senior acquisitions editor. So I know the Chicago Manual of Style very well, and as should your other editors as well. And then the dictionary that we all use is Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, the 11th edition. And usually most of us have that as an app on our phones, on our iPads, or we access it online. And other types of guides that are used or part of our knowledge base at the copy editing stage are some of these that I have here. I put them right here so that I could point them out. This is a book on copy editing, the subversive copy editor. Many of us have read this. Here's another guide on fact checking. This is a very excellent guide, also from the Chicago University of Chicago. This is from the publishers of the Chicago Manual Style. Editors should always be improving. We should always be working to keep up with what's new in language and usage, what's happening in our culture when it comes to language. Language is always changing. And so when it comes to the editorial process, your editor should be aware of what language is being used in the current climate. And that's really to help you be able to reach your audience. If you're using outdated terms or referring to certain things, like as a African American, I'm going to use this example. If we're talking about, a modern day, nonfiction book that's dealing with some issues concerning race relations, I don't expect my author to have words like colored people in the book. I expect to see African American. You want to be able to make sure that you recognize some of those changes in language and culture, and that they're reflected in the manuscript, so that you as the author look like you understand your audience. And that's something that your editor needs to be sensitive to. And that all happens again in these two stages of editing. A couple more resources. This is a book called What Editors Do by Peter Gina. This is a wonderful resource that gives all of what I've talked about so far in great detail. An editor's job is quite comprehensive and very diverse. This is one of my favorites. This is a classic, Editors on Editing. It contains several essays from some of the most popular, most well-known editors. And if you're an aspiring editor watching, I've given you a few resources that I think will be tremendous in helping you develop your skill. After your book has been copy edited, the next step is going to be typesetting. Your book is taken from a Microsoft Word document and submitted to a designer who specializes in book interiors. There are certain conventions and styles and designs that are common within the book publishing industry, and these are based on making sure your book is easily readable. So that includes choices of font, as well as fitting the book into the trim size that has been decided by the sales, marketing, and editorial team. Different books sell better at different trim sizes, and it means certain things. There's all kinds of science behind this, and it's based on consumer preferences and market research, and just knowing what types of books need to be different trim sizes. I want to give you an example of what we're talking about, because in my experience, I've noticed that some authors have a difficult time understanding what those different things mean. I want to use one book that I've recently done as an example. I received a raw manuscript from the author, and I began to put that, I apply paragraph styles to it, and I work on it, and I edit it. I edit in Microsoft Word. I do not edit hard copy. And editors, for the most part, are editing in Microsoft Word across the industry, and that is their preference. And so here, I'm going to use John Eckhart's Ridiculous Favor that was released last year. The introduction. Yeah. There's part 1. And there's the beginning of chapter 1. So this is a Word document, and this is the edited version. For this book, as I was doing the substantive edit and a little bit of writing, I also did the copy edit at the same time. That is not usually how editors work, but in this case, I was able to do that. You know, some authors are very good writers. This was an independently published book, so there was a little bit of leeway on my part, and I just went ahead and quickly did that for John Eckhart. So now, here is the typeset version of the same manuscript that I just showed that was in Word. It is now in a program called InDesign. InDesign is the typesetting software, a design software that typesetters use to set the Word document and to apply various fonts and things that make the book ready for the printer. As you can see, this is the half title page. That's what this first page in the book is called. There's usually a blank page that follows the half title page, and next is the full title page. And this was obviously not in my Word document. This is usually sent along separately. The cover designer is the one who usually develops the half title and full title pages, and they're sent or submitted to the typesetter and dropped in to the InDesign file. And here you will see the same copyright page that I showed you earlier. This is what it looks like set in type. You'll notice that there are crop marks and that the page is smaller. This is because now it's actually set up in the trim size and that the printer will use, and it'll be cut. They'll have, the printer will print this out on big sheets called signatures, and they will cut the pages out and bind the book. But this is the size that the book will be. So it's not the same anymore as what we saw in the Word document. The next thing I want to show you is the introduction. So this is what it looks like. So here's the Word document of the intro, and here's that same Word document typeset. Pretty cool. This is what we get from the printer. And this is the trim size of the book. It's small. You can see some of the other books on my shelf have a bigger trim size, yeah. And these are all decisions made by your publisher, and there are reasons behind these decisions. So even if you're self-publishing, you want to make your publishing, your packaging decisions strategically. This book is obviously bigger. You can see that the page count is significantly larger than Ridiculous Favor. Writing Tools is about Writing Tools is a little bit over 300 pages, and a larger trim size works for a book like this. You don't want it to be so chunky. If it was this size, it would be huge this way. It would be lots more pages, almost 400 pages probably. But they made it a larger trim size so it would fit the word count. Ridiculous Favor, this is about 30,000 words. 128 pages, 30,000 words. And this trim size is 5x7. This trim size looks like it's about 8.5, 5.5 by 8.25, or 5.5 by 8.5. Anyway, these are things that you just learn as you're making strategic plans for the author and publishing their book. So I also want to show you that again, we see the half title page, something that I showed you a little bit earlier. Here's the half title page. There's the blank page I showed you from the typeset version. There is the copyright page again. The phenomenal table of contents. That's what it looks like in typeset form. You see that it's been cut into fit for the trim size of the book. The phenomenal table of contents. And the introduction, just you can see that it was here. This is what it looked like in, this is what the printer gets, and this is what the printer sends the publisher and the author. So that's phenomenal. Now you see how that happens. The author is also sent the typeset pages to review. These are the same pages that are proofread. The proofreader does not proofread the Word document. The proofreader proofreads the book once it has been set in type. And that is to ensure that the trim size is right. There are no typographical errors at this point. The proofreading is not an edit per se. It is the final quality check to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. It's also the opportunity for the author to review the typeset pages. In that step, I just described steps 6 and 7 in the editorial process. So 6 is first pages or galleys. That's where the author reviews the typeset pages. And 7 is proofreading, where typos are checked for quality control, the last opportunity for the author to submit changes to the manuscript. And hopefully at that point, they are not significant changes that cause the pages to reflow and bump down and for the typesetter to have to re-typeset the book. We really don't want that to happen at that stage. If there are significant changes, they should happen back at step 3 at author review, and not later in the process once the book is almost finished. That can cost time and money in your process, and you don't want to do that. Once the book is proofread and everything is final, the author approves and it's good to go, and everybody has signed off. The files are uploaded to the printer, both the interior files that I showed you, the typeset pages, and the book cover. The book cover is digital at that point, but everything is sent to the printer, and then advanced copies are shipped out from the printer. The publisher gets them, the author gets them, and usually the freelancers or literary agent or whomever was pivotal to the publishing process up to this point, as well as sometimes reviewers and book bloggers will get advanced copies as well. And then closer to the release date, the books will be shipped out to retailers, and so that they can start to stock them on their shelves for your amazing release day. Thank you so much for joining me on this webinar all about book editing and publishing. I hope that you found it helpful. As you consider going forward in your writing and editing and publishing process, consider the people that you will have partner with you along the way. Make sure you understand the value and the importance of chemistry in the process. You want to make sure that you're working with professionals who get you and who understand your purpose for writing. For more resources on the things that I shared today, please feel free to visit my website at javonbolden.com, where you will find articles that give tips and best practices for writing, editing, and getting published.
of y'all mics are on.
Oh boy.
Oh, that's hilarious. Apostle John Eckhart on the side of me, who is my coach, you guys. So you in for a treat. I hope you guys enjoyed the first two sessions with Nichelle and then with Javon. I know that it was a video. It was a lot of information. I pray that you guys took notes and wrote things down so that you're prepared to complete your book. And so we're going to get ready to move into part 3 of this special session that we have in store for you guys. So go ahead, get lit, get turned up, get stirred up, because we got the one and only. My God. I got a quick icebreaker, though, for you, Coach, real quick. So I'm going to ask Coach a couple ice-breaking questions so that we all can kind of relax and as you guys get started, because it's like transitioning from one segment to the next segment, but it's all about building momentum. And, you know, we're building momentum, and we want this webinar to be something that's going to be able to help you guys and all that good stuff. Some of them saying this has surpassed my expectations. It's been powerful. It's been good. So great. So, Coach, do you prefer reading or writing?
I prefer reading.
You do?
Yes.
Even though you wrote like all them books, you prefer reading over writing.
I love reading. I think that, as a matter of fact, I want to talk about that. I believe that becoming a good writer can also be the result of being a good reader.
Okay. So is there certain books, are you just like kind of like into Christian books?
Yeah,
certain books?
I'm a total Christian nerd. I only read Christian books. Been doing that for over 30 years. So only Christian. Sometimes only other kind of books I like to read are history books. I like history.
Okay. Yeah, is that what, like, because your books is very detailed, I mean, really good and scriptural, and so you did a really good job. So let me ask you this, though. Just something regular. Do you like action movies, or are you more of the Lifetime type guy?
I like action movies much more than Lifetime. I like good action pictures. I can watch drama, but action is always. I like comedies too.
Okay,
I like to laugh. Yes.
You do?
Yes.
You do got a sense of humor, though.
I love laughing.
You think you funny?
People sometimes say I'm funny. Anytime you're in trouble in the pulpit, you can always crack a joke.
Crack a joke and it bail you out. So what about, are you like the kind of like fast food, home cooked meal?
No, I'm definitely like fast food. Unfortunately, I like fast food. I like tasty food, but I have to have home cooked meals after a season. fast food can only take you so far, and you have to have a home cooked meal.
A home cooked meal.
Yeah.
So I know you into this whole sushi thing. You like sushi?
I love sushi.
I hate it.
Sushi is awesome. I learned eating sushi on a cruise. My sons actually on the cruise went into a sushi restaurant on the ship. I'd never eaten sushi,
Oh, wow.
and I followed them in, and they're the ones that introduced me to sushi.
Wow, that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So are you a three-piece suit type man? Or you jeans and
No,
and a
I'm
t-shirt?
jeans, casual. I used to wear a lot of suits when I was religious and it just gotten saved. But I definitely like casual. I'd rather preach with a shirt and jeans on anytime than having a suit on.
Good. I asked you that question so people could relax and not think that
Yes.
you're just some kind of just like some lame or some
Yes.
nerd, you know. But your books, Coach, you definitely have a grace to impart that scribe anointing upon people. I know that when I met you, we talk about that all the time on that moment. And I didn't have a book, but it was just like making that connection and connecting with you. You released the impartation. And this is what I want you guys to be open about, is that you can get impartation from books.
Yes.
I got impartation from Prophet Arise, and then I constantly read devils that routing demons,
Prayers that rout
prayers that
demons.
routing demons and stuff like that. I read your books, and there's an impartation. So your books sound like you. You can read your books and be like, oh, and connect that to you. And so I believe that having you on this specific segment right now is going to be a blessing to many people because they can receive an impartation from this moment. So you guys, I'm going to go ahead and allow Coach to get started and to share with you all what he has for us on today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited about being on your webinar. When I first began writing, I began writing in 1990. So about 28 years ago, we did not have the tools available that we have now. There was no internet. There were no webinars. You couldn't publish a book, hardly self-publishing online. We have so many more advantages today than we've ever had. And this webinar is an example of how you can go on around the world and people can access the information, the revelation. And you talked about impartation. When you write, you also your spirit is in your writing, and so there can be an impartation because when you write, it's more than just putting words down on a piece of paper. A part of your mind, your spirit, the way you carry yourself is transferred through the writing, and so you can receive an impartation through reading anointed authors. When I first became a Christian, I read a lot of different books by great authors on faith and deliverance. At that time, again, there was no internet. There was no Amazon. You couldn't order them yet. I ordered them. I went to bookstores. I ordered them directly from the publisher. But as I began to read these books, I began to get a spirit of faith, prosperity, prayer on the different types of books that I read. So I knew the value of books. For the first 10 years of my salvation, I read countless numbers of books.
Wow.
So when it came time for me to write, I knew how books impacted me. So I knew that if I wanted to write something, that I could impact someone through my writing. So it really stirred me and challenged me to write. I'm going to give in my time, and you can, if you want, anytime come in and ask a question, amplify.
Okay.
Feel free to do it. Again, I want to congratulate her for her writing webinars, which has really stirred and imparted into so many people. First of all, I'm going to give you, I have 9 points here. I'll spend some time on some of them more than others. When you look at the word author, I mentioned this in our first Write It conference in Orlando, which you came and you were a part of. It was a phenomenal gathering. I mentioned the fact that the word author is the root for the word authority. Author, authority. And so I tell people say, what should I write on? I say, you should write on what you're an authority on. If you're an authority in any subject, you should write, because your authority in the subject gives you the right to write a particular book. Don't try to write something you're not an authority on. Don't try to write something that someone else wrote. What is your field? What is your expertise? What is the thing that you know about the best? You write on that your authority comes through your writing. So in my case, when I began to write, I primarily wrote on the apostolic ministry. and deliverance ministry. Those are my first books that I really wrote because those are the areas I felt I had an authority in. I taught on them all the time. I preached on them all the time. I understood them. I had an authority in those areas. So my knowledge gave me an authority to write. So many people say, well, I want to write something. What do I write? Well, what is your authority? If you're a botanist, you write on flowers. If you are a theologian, you write theological books. If you are a mathematician, you write books on math. Chemist, you write books on chemistry. I would never sit down and try to write a book on chemistry or a book on biology. That's not my authority. So find out what your authority is. Of course, you can write poems. You can write short stories. You can even write fiction. But you have to have an authority. You have to know something about the subject matter that you're writing. And so I always try to make sure that I write on something that I know about the subject matter. Number 2, write by inspiration. What inspires you? What stirs you? What gets you excited? When you write by inspiration, I call this prophetic writing, by the way, when God inspires you to write something. Sometimes God will inspire you to write on a subject. And again, authority and inspiration go hand in hand because generally when you're inspired in a particular area, you'll study that area, you'll familiarize yourself with it. I began to write books on the prophetic. I began to write books on the kingdom because that's what I was inspired to study. The prophetic inspired me. Prophecy inspires me. The whole subject matter gets me excited. It inspires me. Now, whatever you're inspired to do, you're going to reach people who are also inspired in that particular area. And so there are always people that you write for that always will have the same types of inspiration. Everyone does not read my books. I don't expect everyone to pick my book and read it. But there are people, and remember this, there were 7 billion people on the planet. There are people that are also inspired, have a desire to read something that you will write on. So you have to figure out who is my target audience. Am I writing to young people? Am I writing to pastors? Am I writing to people that are hurting? For instance, if I write a book on deliverance from hurt, then evidently there are people that I know who are hurting, who can benefit from my testimony. She wrote books on the subject of her deliverance because there are multitudes of people that need encouragement in that particular area. So there was already a built-in market for her books because there are people that are struggling or have to walk through the things of shame and guilt. And what do you do after the altar? And so she had a target audience. So when someone picks up your book, they're going to say, well, this is something that I can relate to. So, your testimony. What do you have to offer? God has given all of us something to offer, a revelation, insight, understanding, wisdom, something that you have that you can write down that will help multitudes of people. And of course, there are people that will read your book that will never meet you. Wow. They'll never sit in your services, but they'll pick up a book, sometimes across the earth. They'll pick up your book. I can't tell you the numbers of people that I have testimonies that picked my book up, never knew me, never heard of me, but my book was able to touch them. And when they read the book, because I was an authority in that area, I knew what I was talking about. And secondly, I was inspired to do it. I didn't write just because I knew something. I felt inspired by God to put this on paper because the Spirit of God will inspire you to write things because the Holy Spirit uses books to minister to people. So he will inspire you to write, sometimes on a different subject. Sometimes he'll inspire you to write on subjects that others are not writing on. Sometimes he'll have you deal with an area that there's not a market, there's not a lot of books on that subject, an overlooked area, but an important area. I'm not saying you need to be an echo. Don't just write something that's already been written. Write something unique. Write something different. You can do that by becoming an authority in an area, by studying it, by understanding things that maybe have never been understood fully. It could be on faith. If you write a book on faith, don't just write the same book that has been written on faith before. Maybe God has given you insight on faith that you haven't heard preached very much. because God is always teaching us and showing us new things. And of course, I'm dealing primarily with the Christian realm of authoring, but try to deal with something God reveals to you, an insight, an understanding. I don't read about this much. No one is dealing with this area, shame. There are not a lot of books on shame because it's an area that most people don't deal with. And so, but it's a need. So sometimes God will inspire you to write something that is not really out there. And that is what will catch the attention of people. I can go in a bookstore and I can see 1,000 books, and most of them I would never buy because I've already read or understood what this person is saying. It's just an echo. Now, for a new person who never read that book, they may pick it up. But for me, I may see something that is unique and say, now this is insight that I've never had before, and that will motivate me to buy it, especially if your market is for people who know the Lord, who've been walking with God in the Christian realm. Of course, there are books for beginners. Maybe you're just called to write something basic because maybe you think that God shows you that we have all this deep stuff, but people are lacking foundation and basics. But write by inspiration. Number 3, write from an overflow.
Wow.
An overflow. I shared this the other night that I believe, as Jesus said in John 7:37, that he that believes on me, as the scripture said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. There should be something flowing out of you. I believe that books can literally gush out of you. I know people say I have a hard time writing a book, and you can deal with writer's block. But I believe that we should be so spirit-filled and so on fire for God until books can just gush out of you. It's an overflow. Remember, the word says, he anoints my head with oil, my cup runs over. And so live in the overflow. Live in the realm of inspiration. Live in the realm of hearing the voice of God. Live in the realm of prayer, the realm of worship, the realm of getting godly ideas. Let God speak to you. And when that happens, you'll write so much. People often ask me, how do you write so many books? I've written over 50 books.
Wow.
It's from an overflow. It's just you get so full of a particular revelation until it just pours. And then the moment you finish one book, another one comes. I believe you can walk in that particular realm. Now, you may not be at that place now. I'm not saying that if you've not written 50 books that you should stop. Sometimes the hardest book is the first book because you have to learn how to develop it and birth it. But live in the overflow. Always develop a habit of writing, even if you're not writing a book. Write. Just write down your thoughts. Write in a journal. Type it on a computer. Save it. You may go back to it later. Always write. I never sit down and say, I'm just going to write a book. Generally, books develop. You can write a little here, write a little there, and all of a sudden you're putting things together, and a book kind of grows. It kind of develops into a book. Everything I write doesn't develop into a book. But eventually, if I write something here, write something there, get inspired, and keep writing, I get so much until I get the nucleus of a book. And the book develops. I don't just sit down saying, okay, let me write a book and just, out of nowhere, just write a book. I mean, generally, books have to develop. They have to kind of grow. And so as books are developing, give it time. It may take a while to develop it, but you'll get so much on the subject until you'll begin to flow, you'll begin to diminish out of the overflow, and you'll find yourself writing and writing and writing. This is the result, I believe, of being filled with the Holy Spirit. Number 4, write with a mission. What is your purpose? My purpose in writing was to bring revelation, insight, and understanding to believers around the world concerning subjects I thought were very important, often subjects that were new, such as the apostolic, the prophetic, deliverance, subjects that people didn't talk about very much. That was my mission. That was my calling. What is your mission? Is it to help hurting people? Is it to bring deliverance? Is it to bring encouragement? Is it to release a prophetic word? Is it to release a vision? What is your mission? Write with a mission. What is your purpose? We don't want to write a book just to write a book. There's a calling to do this. And I believe in this hour that writing, people are realizing that writing can be a calling. It's called being a scribe. They're scribes. You're called to do this. Just like you're called to preach, you're called to teach, you're called to prophesy, you can be called to write. It's a call. It's not just something you do on the side. I'll do a book because someone else has done a book. No, it's a calling. It's a gift. It's a talent. It's an ability. It's a divine endowment. When you recognize you have a mission, it doesn't mean you have to write 1,000 books. Your mission may be to write one book that will change the world, or deliver people, or heal people, or restore people, or educate people, or bring people into knowledge, or rebuke lies, or break tradition, or bring truth. That may be your mission. Find out what your mission is and write with a mission. And then number 5, be passionate about what you write. Have a passion. If you're not passionate about anything, you won't do it well. When you're passionate, when you enjoy doing it, develop a love for writing. Enjoy doing it. There are many of you enjoy writing. You love doing it. It's your passion. That's a sign of a calling. Be passionate about it. When you're passionate about it, no one has to force you to do it. No one has to beg you to do it. Now, again, that doesn't mean you won't have times when you're not as passionate. There are times in life when I don't write as much, but I always get back to writing because that's my passion. I love doing it. I enjoy doing it. I'm passionate about writing. I'm passionate about books. I'm passionate about knowledge and wisdom and understanding. So be passionate about what you write. And then, let me see, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ask God for skill. Skill. Now, in the scripture, skill is also wisdom. I always say that wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. Skill. A skill is the ability to write correctly, to write in a way where people like to read. I've read books, and it's like it takes 100 pages for the person to get to the point. I don't need 100 pages for you to get to the point. I need to be able to understand what you're writing. You need to be able to capture me what you're writing. It can be simple yet profound. But ask God for skill. Ask God, Lord, give me skill in writing. If you don't feel like you're skillful in writing, ask God. The Bible says we have not because we ask not. The Bible says if you ask for wisdom, God will give it to you. Wisdom is skill. Wisdom is the ability, the talent to know how to do things properly. Different people have different wisdom in different areas. Some people are wise speakers. Some are wise writers. Some are wise administrators. They have a skill. So ask God for skill. Ask God to give you skill in writing so that it makes it easier to write. And when God can give that to you, if you can also get impartation this way by coming to Write It conferences, by watching webinars like this where we pray for you and impart, I believe, gifts, talents, anointings, and skill that can help you become a creative writer, become a skillful writer, become a prolific writer, become a writer who knows how to articulate your thoughts, how to use the right words and to put them on paper. Again, they don't have to be big words that no one understands, but God can give you the ability to write in such a way until it's easy to be understood, and yet it captures the attention of the reader, and it's skillful. We want people that write skillful books. We don't want you just putting something on paper and trying to make it work. If you're not skillful, then give your manuscript to someone who is skillful. Yeah. That's what we talked about, editing and those who can help you write. There are people that can help you articulate better. They can tell you, well, I don't think this is said well. You can say it better this way, or you can change this or rearrange this. Don't be dogmatic in saying, well, God told me to put it exactly like that, and if you don't like it, it's too bad. No, put another set of eyes on it. Get people who can edit and look at your work and say, okay, this is too long, or this is not explained well, or this is not written well, or there are too many things you're repeating the same thing over and over, and you're not developing your point. You're not going deeper into the subject matter. But ask God for skill, or ask God to put skillful people in your life that can help you. There are people that are anointed in this area. They can help you. Now, you may have to, pay for it, and don't be cheap and sow a seed if you want it done well. You may have to get a publisher that will do it. Don't be afraid to do that, because you want your message to be put out in such a way until it's intelligible, it can be understood, it's not spooky, it's not weird, it's not when people read your book, they're wondering, what are you talking about? You're able to articulate exactly what is on your heart. And then your title. I want to talk about your title, your book title. I want them to put up the latest book that I've written. It's called and leave the title up. It's called The Asaph Spirit. It's up. Okay. As you look at this book, notice when I made this book, The Asaph Spirit, I understand that most people probably don't know who Asaph was. And they know who David was, but who was Asaph? So when someone picks up my book, they may not even know what this is all about. So notice my subtitle. The top of the book, I gave it a subtitle. It's called Awakening a New Generation to Prophetic Worship. It kind of explains the book. I like Asaph. I think it's a powerful title, but I understood that that title alone would not really grab people who didn't understand what Asaph was. And so I put up a subtitle called Awakening a New Generation of Prophetic Worship. Now, you can take that title down. The person who helped me with this was the person who came on before me, Javon Dowd. She works with me. She's my editor. She edits my books. She helps me develop my books. She puts eyes on my books. She helps me articulate things. Excellent editor. And she's the one that recommended this subtitle. Now, I could have been dogmatic and say, oh, no, just Asaph. If they don't get it, they need to read the book. But understand that different people are picking up your book. You want people, when they pick up your book, you want to get their attention. You don't want them to pick up the book and you lose them in the first 15 seconds of picking up your book. What's going to cause this person to want to read your book? When they see Asaph, but then they see Awakening a New Generation to Prophetic Worship, explains what this book is. Then they may open the book, look at the chapters, or then they turn the book over, and you have a brief synopsis on the back of your book, something that gives them the reason why they should buy the book. In this book, you will learn the power of prophetic worship and why worship is so important. This book will challenge you to step into new realms of worship. You put that on the back of the book because you want to let people know, what will I benefit from buying this book? Why should I spend $10, $15 on this book? What would this book do for you? And people today don't have time to stand there and read your whole book in a bookstore or in a Walmart. They're too busy. You need to capture their attention right away and draw them in. And of course, they may look in the book, they may read some of it, and then they say, okay, I believe I need this book. Why does the person need your book? Why would they buy your book? You have to think about this when you're putting out a book. You may know why the book is important, but why should they buy your book? And so much of that is put on the front cover and on the back cover. And then, of course, your creative design on the front cover has to look well enough to draw them in. It's not good to have an ugly cover. Okay? I know people say covers don't sell books, but covers, people do judge books by their cover. I know we say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but you do look at the cover. So get you a good graphic artist. Get you someone who is prophetic. If you're the prophetic type, I looked at several colors for that book, and if you put that cover back up, Asaph, I wanted something with the Ark of God, and because that represents the presence of God. Asaph stood before the Ark of God in 1 Chronicles chapter 25. But I wanted something that they sent me different covers with a picture of the Ark. But this cover I liked because it was the best cover that showed the glory coming out behind the Ark. And part of this book talks about prophetic worship brings you into the glory. And so I wanted a picture with the Ark, something that was bright and that really revealed the glory of God. And then the subtitle, Awakening a New Generation to Prophetic Worship. That was my mission. That's my purpose in writing this particular book, was to awaken a new generation to prophetic worship. I'm really concentrating on the next generation of Asaph's, David's, psalmists, minstrels that God will raise up to give them an impartation, a revelation of worship, and how they can step into new dimensions of worship. Then put another set of eyes on your manuscript. I talked about this. Let someone else look at your manuscript. Now, when I first started writing, there weren't many people in church writing books, at least in the church I was connected with. We didn't write books. There are more people writing books now than ever. When I first started writing, there were authors that I loved, but they were not in my community, in my church, in my circle. As a matter of fact, in my church, we were not really encouraged to read books as far as our Christian development. We listened to preaching, teaching, I had revivals, but I was the first one in my church to open a book table and to get people to read different books on faith, healing, prosperity, prayer, in order to really educate them. Only books we had in our church were Sunday school books. Okay, you bought the Sunday school book and you came to Sunday school. But no one, the ministers in my church didn't write books. The pastors didn't write books. They preached. I knew pastors that preached for 20, 30, 40 years and never wrote a book. So when they passed, they left nothing but maybe their recordings or their sermons. But now pastors are writing books, ministers, even members, intercessors, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers are understanding the importance. I have a message, but I need to put it in a book. I need to leave something. It's important that sometimes when you preach in a conference, you preach on a particular subject. It's good to have a book because you can only share so much of your revelation in a 2 or 3 day meeting, and you need to be able to leave something for people to follow up and study on a deeper level. So now people are writing more books than ever. But when I was beginning to minister in 1978, that's about 150 years ago, we didn't have, it was not our culture, but now it's different. And so it's good to put a set of eyes on your book, especially good editors or good publishers or authors who've already written books. For instance, I had an individual wrote a book in my church, published it, came to me, put the book in my hand, and I was excited for them. Say, I wrote a book, Pastor. I encourage people to write books in my church. Here it is. And so I took the book. I went home and read it. Now he'd already written the book, published it, self-published it. I went on and read the book. And when I read the book, it was almost as if nothing of the subject matter on the front of the book was in the book. I couldn't find anything in the book that was representative of the title. And I would have told him that if he'd have brought the book to me, the manuscript. I would have told him, brother, this book does not line up with your title. I don't know what you wrote. I don't know what's in this book. I remember buying a book years ago at a conference, and it was a pretty popular minister. And I would, if I called his name, you would know him. And the title of the book was on the apostolic. And I was excited just coming to the apostolic. So I bought the book. I went home. When I read the book, there was nothing in the book on the apostolic. It was just some sermons he had preached. I wanted to take the book back for a refund. So you need sometimes another set of eyes on your book, at least for people to say, well, this doesn't match, or you need to, change this or help you. Don't be too proud to have someone else look at your material, especially a leader, a pastor, a writer. Don't send them to me, okay, because I'm not good at reading a lot of books. Find someone else. I'm busy. So please, I'm not telling you to send me all your manuscripts. Please don't do it, because you'll be disappointed. I don't like. I will do some, but I'm not opening up Manuscript University here where you flood me with your manuscripts. Okay, I love you, but you need to send them to Sophia Ruffin. This is her webinar. Okay, she's the one that will take care of this. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up here. I don't know how much time.
You're doing good. You're doing good. You got plenty of time. This is excellent.
Associate with other writers. I think one of the best things you can do is to stay inspired. Attend writing conferences. We have a writing page on Facebook called Write It 2017 with John Eckhart. We have over 4,000 people on that page now. You can ask to join. We have constant articles on writing and authors and editing. And because sometimes iron sharpens iron. You need to get around people. I believe in impartation. One of the things that I felt with Sophia, she'd already written a book, but she was about to preach at our conference in 2017, Reset. And I said, well, do you have any other books? And she said, well, I think he had one or two books at that time. I think he had two.
Just one.
She had one book.
Yeah.
I said, well, you need to write a couple more books before you get to this conference. I said, because God's about to platform your ministry, and you need to have books there. And she already had some things written. And so it really provoked her to really write those books. I believe one on shame and one after the altar. So she wrote those books very quickly. I was amazed at how quickly she wrote them. and had those books ready immediately, and it kind of pushed her into writing more. And now she's coming out with another book. I believe your fourth book.
It's number 5.
Number
now.
5. Okay. And this is the first one. The one you're coming with now is the first one published by Charisma.
Yes.
And again, a man's gift will make room for him. Your gift will make room for you. You may not have someone publish your first book. You probably won't, because publishers are looking at how many people you know, your social media presence, how many books you can sell. You have to kind of use the social media to promote your books. If you have a preacher, my advantage was I was a preacher. I was doing conferences, so I always had a market. I can take books to my conferences where there were thousands of people. I preach, have a book table. So I didn't have a great social media presence, and I was a television program. So I had an avenue. You may not start with that. You may have to, but you don't have to print thousands of books in your first printing. Because if your book is good, trust me, people will buy them and they'll read them. It may take some time for the word to get out, but once the word gets out, people find out good books, and others will recommend them. People will tell others about them. It may start off slow, but if it's like a good restaurant. If the restaurant opens and no one knows about it, I guarantee you, if the food is good, I don't care if it's a hole in the wall. They will find a hole in the wall if it's good food. They'll drive. In Chicago, folk would drive from the suburbs to go down. They used to go to Maxwell Street to get Polish sausages just because they thought it was good. So if you're gifted, if you put something of quality in a book that really delivers people, blesses people, encourages people, brings revelation to people, and sometimes you need to get around others who sometimes on a higher level, they can inspire you, they can impart to you, they can push you, they can teach you, they can give you tips. Stay on this. Go to that page, join it, keep studying it, keep developing your gift. I am not the same writer I was when I first started. My first book was a very small book on the ministry of helps, and then I wrote one on the ministry of governments. Those not even in print anymore. Then I wrote one on the ministry of the apostle, very small books. I didn't have a lot of revelation, but I put down what I knew and I wrote, and they weren't bestsellers, but I kept writing, I kept developing my gift. Keep developing your gift, keep sharpening your gift, keep doing it. The more you do something, the more adept you become at it. It's very easy for me to write a book now. I can write a book almost in my sleep. I mean, I can wake up with a book. I can just write a book. I've written over 50 of them. And I couldn't do that at first. But after a while, you develop your gift, you sharpen your gift. I got around others. I read authors. I read books. I read how others wrote. I believe I got an impartation by reading so many books. And then when I began to write, I was able to write in a way that I felt was very simple, yet very deep and revelational. Okay, so again, write what you're an authority on.
Awesome.
Number 2, write by inspiration. Number 3, write from an overflow. Stay filled. Number 4, write with a mission. Have a purpose. Why am I writing this book? What's the purpose of this book? Am I writing just to write a book? Who am I going to reach? Who's going to read this book? Be passionate about what you write. I can write on whatever I preach, I'm passionate about, and I generally write on it because my passion in a particular object, whether it's on deliverance, the prophetic, whether it's on worship, whether it's on the apostolic, the kingdom, I'm very passionate about those subjects. And it's very easy for me to write about them because that's my passion. Sophia's passionate about her testimony, about her ministry, about getting people delivered from shame and hurt and perversion, and getting people delivered after the altar, what to do. She's passionate about that. It comes across when she ministers, when she preaches. When you write about what you're passionate, your passion will translate into something that people will read, and they'll pick up your passion in the book. And if you're not passionate about it, don't write about it. Okay, have a passion for what you're doing. We're not just writing books just to writing books. This is our passion. This is our mission. This is our purpose. This is our gift. This is our calling. This is our ministry. This is what we're an authority on. This is what inspires us. This is what stirs us. We love when people write us and say, your book changed my life. When people give a testimony, I read your book, it turned my life around. That blesses me. When I more than selling a book, it blesses me to know that my writing has helped someone, has blessed someone, has turned someone's life around. That blesses me when I get testimonies, and that will stir you to keep writing because your books will make a difference. Ask God for skill, wisdom. There's a scribal anointing. There's a skill in writing that is supernatural, that is given by God, that can come from impartation, that can come directly from God. Ask God for skill and wisdom. Remember, the Bible says we have not because we ask not. When you ask in faith. If you say, I'm not good at this, Lord, help me. Lord, give me, let that scribal anointing come on my life, Lord. Give me the ability to write and articulate the thoughts that are in my heart, the message, the passion that I have. Let me put it down in a way that attracts people and draws people and transfers what I'm sharing in my heart to them as they read the particular book. Remember your title. What is your book about? What draws people? Don't make titles so deep and so long until people can't understand them. Let me give you an example about that. One of the books I wrote was called God Still Speaks. And originally when I wrote the book, the title, I forget, was something on the prophetic. But my publisher, Charisma, said, well, the problem with that is that the people you're trying to reach, we're trying to give you a broader audience. They don't understand what the prophetic is. In your circle, the churches you preach in, they know what prophetic is. But in many circles, when they hear the word prophetic, they may think it's a book about the end times or end time prophecy or the end of the world. When you're trying to talk about prophecy and prophetic worship. And so they entitled the book, God Still Speaks. And at first I said, well, that's such a weak title. They said, but no, people understand that. God still speaks. People want to hear God's voice. They want to know, does God speak today? Will God speak to me? And so even though it's a book about the prophetic, and there is a word in there about speaking, it helped me to reach a larger audience. You can't think that everybody knows what you know. They don't. Everyone is not on the same level of revelation and understanding that you're on. And I wanted my books in Walmart, and they eventually put my books in Walmart. An interesting story is that my book, Prayers That Rout Demons, now that seems to be a pretty controversial title, but they kept it. They said, that's an interesting title, Prayers That Rout Demons. And they put it in Walmart. Even unsaved people bought the book because the problem I had was unsaved folk know they have demons. It's the saved folk that didn't know they had demons. So Prayers That Rout Demons even attracted unsaved people who say, well, I got some of those. Let me read this so I can pray these demons out of my life. Okay? Put another set of eyes on your manuscript. Get some help. Get some good people around you. Some good editing is a must. You had a whole segment by Javon Bowden on editing. It's a must. A good editor will save your book. A good editor will take your book into another market if you get someone who knows how to edit. Associate with other writers. Iron sharpens iron. Read good books. And those are the 9 points I want to make. I don't know if I went too quickly. Let me see what my time here, but I'm gonna finish up and let you either close out or comment on anything I've said. Thank you so much.
That's phenomenal. My God. I got to take a deep breath, and I ain't even said nothing.
Oh.
I know they hyped up. I mean, we got some good feedback. I think the 9 points are amazing. I mean, I'm stirred up. I love so many of the points you made because when you start talking about it just kept like you could feel the rhythm and the momentum as you went through each point. It was just like something happened. And that's why it's so important, as you saying, you have to be around other writers. You have to be, it's something that just happened. I'm getting stirred up and I feel like writing a book.
Go
but
ahead.
I don't feel like writing it, but I feel like, but when you start talking about write from an overflow,
Yes.
I mean, just give us a little, just can you, actually, I know I'm supposed to share like something that's worth 5 minutes, but just.
Well, it's like singing from an overflow.
Yes.
You know, when a person gets up who's a worship leader and they're full of the Spirit of God and they begin to sing new songs, songs come out of them. I mentioned this, new songs come out of people. New books can come out of you.
Yes.
But it comes from an overflow. A worshiper, someone who spends time in God's presence, out of your belly will flow rivers of living water. And I believe you can have so much inspiration, so much your prayer life, what you've gone through, your testimony, just what God speaks to you, what God shows you. It can be so much in you until you have to write. It's like, I got so much to offer the world. I've got to put this on paper. I've got to get this book out. It's like being pregnant with the book.
Yes.
You got to birth it. And what is your passion? What stirs in you? What gets you going? I tell you, if you have no passion and you're just a lazy bum
on.
in the spirit, you will not write books. Books is not for lazy people. It's for folks who are stirred up, excited, have something to put down, have a message, the overflow. So what is flowing out of you? What is bubbling up in you? What is gushing out of you? What is the word? What is the subject? What is the story? Even if it's a creative story, what is inspiring you? What wakes you up? What gets you going?
Yes.
This is how you stay up all night writing, because it's coming out of you. And at times you can write and it just comes out of you. There are times I've written for hours and it just pours out of me. Then I'll stop and go to sleep and wake up the next day and it just pours out. Sometimes it's not pouring out that much. I may just write some things down and then go back later, and it's a cumulative effect. It just kind of adds up over a period of time. Other times, the best time to write a book is when you're stirred, when it's flowing out of you,
Yes.
when it's pouring out of you. Remember, out of your belly, Jesus said, will flow rivers of living water. That's, I believe, the result of being spirit-filled and really being a believer. Spirit-filled people should write the most books of anybody. We have the anointing and the Holy Ghost. We have something the world doesn't have. If the world can write books and without the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
how much more should we be able to? I mean, every book in the Bible was written by inspiration, was written out of an overflow. These men and women of God prophesied and wrote their revelations out. So the same thing applies today. Right out of the overflow, right out of the abundance, right out of the revelation, what God shows you, and let it pour out. That's what's going to bless people, because when they read it, they're going to recognize this is not just the words of a man. These are the words inspired by God, that God uses to inspire a man or woman. And this is what brings deliverance and healing and restoration into my life.
My God, you get excited about this.
Yes,
My God,
yes.
I mean, you over here it's just like a river coming out of you right now, stirred up. You guys, it's amazing. It is amazing. Everything you shared, the pointers. It was another thing that you shared about how books develop over time. And I know that this webinar is an intensive webinar to try to get people not to procrastinate, not to sit on books. But I like what you said when you said books develop, and you said to always write. Even if you're writing a little bit at a time and you're leaving it here, but write daily, and over time that book will develop.
And also, even with that, some books do develop over time. But even with that, even if you write a short book, a small book, many times you have to go back and redo your book. Sometimes after you write a book, you realize what you didn't put in the book. I've written books, and then years later, I have a much greater revelation of the subject. And so there's what we call revised books, where people go and revise a book because you learn more as you grow. So there's always time to go and revise a book. You don't have to wait. Sometimes people wait for years until they get the perfect book, instead of publishing what they have.
Yeah.
And doing something maybe smaller, and eventually either writing a second book or revising the book and adding more to it. You can always revise a book. You can always do a second edition. You can always go back and redo a cover or redo a book, or even change some things in the book that maybe you want to take out because maybe you didn't say it the way you wanted to and you got a greater revelation. So I'm not against people pushing out the book quickly. Sometimes you need to get something out, but if you have a passion, a revelation to get it out, some books do develop, come over time. Some books come very quickly. You get inspiration, you get a message, you have to get it out. You have to get it out quickly. Some books, over a period of time, you develop, you get a lot of material. Then you say, you know what? I need to put this in a book. I have enough information and revelation over a period of time where this goes into a book. But you can always redo a book, revise a book, improve a book, do revised editions of a book. That happens all the time in the world of book writing and publishing.
That's awesome. I don't want you to go anywhere. I want you to definitely seal this and pray us out.
Okay.
Because you just have so much in you, and I know that you have an impartation to release to us. And so you guys, we're going to have Coach pray us out as we begin to close out. I know many of you had this question about writing and the etiquette of writing, because so many of you are held back and held up because you're afraid that if you tell your story or you begin to write, how do you keep it clean? How do you write with grace and with class to make sure that you're not exposing other people, especially people that have stories of deliverance, whether it's overcoming molestation, abuse, trauma, whatever. How do I write and tell my story? Because a lot of you won't hear the reason why you haven't written is because you're afraid, and your book has so many details of people who may have done things to you before, and so you're afraid to share and afraid to write. But I just want to quickly just share with you that you do want to follow one of the skills that Coach said was you want to have someone else read your book. You want to have a good editor, someone who would help you cover and protect your writing, and so that you don't expose yourself, because I've read books where you can literally hear people bleeding in their books, and so many people are not healed. So you want to make sure that even when you begin to write, if you're telling your testimony or you're sharing your story, number one, that you're delivered, because you will be tried and tested. And number two, you want to make sure that you are healed, that you're writing from a place of forgiveness and a place of purity and a place where you have grace and just this grace, so that when you write, everybody's not reading your private journal. Sometimes you can write too soon and you're not healed and you still got bitterness and unforgiveness and rejection. And when your readers read it, they can feel that. And so I just want to encourage you to make sure that when you begin to write, that you write with a grace, that you write and you cover. You cover and you protect those who may have done things to you. You change names, okay? You want to make sure that you're not writing from a broken place, because readers don't want to read something and they just like, man, this story is just traumatizing. You want to show them how you overcame, how you came out, how you were delivered. So you want to make sure that you protect those. I recently heard about a lady who wrote a book, and she wrote this book about a lot of perversion and incest and all of that. And I mean, name drop people, and I mean, it was just ugly. So you want to make sure that you write with a grace, so that your readers is not left with a bitter taste in their mouth. And then when you writing books on your testimony, make sure you write and it's clean. You don't need to write books and it's really explicit. You got a rated R book. I do believe in transparency and keeping it real, but I also believe that God will grace you and anoint you to write with class and with purity, and that is protecting your readers. And so I wanted to share that. Make sure you're not exposing areas, you're not bleeding, you're not spilling out in your writing, and that when you have another person that's able to read it and edit it, they're able to say, hey, you know, you really want to kind of make sure that you change this part and you add this part and you do this. So I wanted to just add that, and make sure that you don't defame anyone's character by using real names in real places. Don't try to use your book as a book to get back at someone who did something to you. That's not etiquette. That's not grace. That's not God. And so you want to make sure that you take the time, especially if you're sharing details of things that you went through. You want to share it maybe with your family or share it with people that are close who may be involved. Don't release your book to the world, and people in your mom or your dad, they like, wait a minute, what's going on? What happened here? Have a conversation and share sensitive issues, so that when you release your book, there's not a crazy backlash, especially when you're talking about testimonies. If you're talking about certain things, if you've been molested by an uncle and you put that in the book and your mom or dad never even knew you were abused, you shared that with the world, but you were not bold enough to share that with the people that are important. So you want to make sure you deal with that, so then your writing and when your book come out, it could be an exciting time and not a time when your family arguing, fighting, and it's chaotic. And I'm saying there's some people you may say, well, I'm ready to tell my story, I'm ready to uncover and pull the cover up, and I'm ready to reveal things, but make sure when you're doing it, you still do it with grace and you still cover and protect. All right. And so I just wanted to recommend that, because I feel like that is really, really something that needs to be addressed when it comes to many of you that sharing your testimonies. And make sure, as Apostle John said, that you have the authority over what you're talking about. You don't have the authority over something if you're not delivered, if you're still bound. And so you can't write about something that you're still walking through or walking out, because it's going to reflect in your writing. You don't have the authority until you have literally dismantled whatever that is that you're about to write about. And as you walk in that authority and you begin to write, God's grace will come upon you and give you wisdom and download things that is incredible, that's going to be a blessing to your readers. So I just wanted to cover that. This has been a phenomenal webinar. I've learned in this webinar. It's been exciting to have Coach be a part of this. I believe in the impartation, you guys. I know many of you are like, well, I'm not right there. If you understand how the supernatural work, God is not bound by geographical location. You do not have to physically be next to Coach, but if you believe in the mantle and the grace that's on his life, this man has written over 50 books. And so I want him to close it out and release a prayer that is going to bless you, stir you, activate you, and charge you and propel you. Thanks to everybody who participated. I appreciate all of you. I'm excited because I know last year the fruit of people who participate in this webinar, they actually have books. So you're going to see the fruit of your investment, and that is not in vain. And so I appreciate all of you guys. I'm going to pass it over to Coach and let him bless us. And then, you guys, we're going to call it a wrap. And again, thank you so much. And yeah, go get my ebook, SophiaRuffin.com, if you want to know how to complete the books in 10 days. I know we get MP3s, but it's nothing like having a physical book, like an ebook, that's going to continue to help you in your writing process.
You know, there's nothing like